On August the 17th of 2016, that was less than 3 months prior to the last U.S. presidential election, The Hill, a political publication, published an editorial that was written by the Supreme Knight of the Knights of Columbus, a man by the name of Carl A. Anderson, in which Anderson stated, and I quote, "The Catholic position that abortion takes a human life is morally wrong and should be substantially restricted is not only backed up by science, it's now the public's consensus by a wide margin," end quote. Now, even though it's hardly necessary for viewers of this video, please allow me to state as clearly as possible that the Catholic position on abortion is not that it should be substantially restricted. Not only is it a grievous error to maintain otherwise, in the present case, it's a bald-faced lie. Now, I can say this with absolute certainty for a number of reasons. The first of which is the fact that on August the 19th, just 3 days after Anderson's editorial was published in The Hill, I reached out to Andrew Walther, who is the VP of Communications for the Knights of Columbus. It's a man with whom I'd corresponded in the past. And I requested a correction from Carl Anderson. Well, Walther didn't bother to respond, and neither did Carl Anderson. Fast forward to April of this year. At that point in time, it became evident that the Knights of Columbus, under Anderson's direction, had successfully leveraged its multi-million-dollar investment in March for Life to convince that organization to also adopt Anderson's anti-Catholic position that abortion should merely be restricted. And so I reached out to Andrew Walther once again for commentary. Now this time, he did respond. Or I should say, he had an underling in the Knights of Columbus Communications Department respond to me with a statement. Now, this statement was not a correction. It was ordered toward clarifying Catholic doctrine and cleaning up the mess that was made by Carl Anderson when he lied about the Catholic position, but rather, it was a public relations piece that was ordered toward burnishing Carl Anderson's image. Now, here's the issue in a nutshell, folks. For more than 4 years, Carl Anderson has been standing behind a lie, namely that the Catholic position on abortion is that it should be substantially restricted. In other words, it's sometimes acceptable. Carl Anderson knows better. But Carl Anderson is a man with an agenda, and it's one that's made plain in his very own words. Now, that agenda involves pushing politicians, including Catholic politicians, to adopt a compromise consensus position on abortion. Under his direction, the Knights of Columbus have donated millions of dollars to March for Life, which, citing polling data purchased and publicized by the Knights, has now joined Carl Anderson in pressing the same agenda forward.
America has consensus.
Consensus.
8 in 10 Americans agree.
Abortion should have real legal limits.
Real legal limits.
Even 6 out of 10 pro-choice Americans agree
That abortion should happen only during the first 3 months of pregnancy.
At most.
At most.
that's consensus.
That's consensus.
But it's not the law.
Why?
Why?
Pro-choice politicians. Politicians.
Many of them want abortion legal right up until birth.
Right up until birth.
Only about 1 out of 10 Americans support this extreme position.
And these pro-choice politicians listen to them, not us.
Not us.
Not us.
Now they want us to pay for abortion.
Our tax dollars.
Almost 2/3 of us say no.
No way.
It's time for this extremism to end.
It's time for our voices to be heard.
It's time for politicians to stop working for the pro-abortion lobby and join the national consensus.
A message from March for Life Action.
You heard that correctly.
And join the national consensus.
Abortion should happen only during the first 3 months of pregnancy.
That's consensus.
That's consensus.
Ladies and gentlemen, the overwhelming majority of abortions in the United States take place within the first 3 months of pregnancy. This means that March for Life is publicly promoting practically every abortion that takes place in the United States. The only ones that they appear to stand against any longer are the ones that take place after 3 months on forward. You can read more about this terrible scandal in the articles that I'm linking below here. Among them is an expose from Randy Engel, a very detailed and well footnoted expose. Now, she is one of the pro-life movement's longest running and most reliable voices. Please take the time to read her expose. It's eye-opening, to say the least. Now, since bringing this scandal to light, both Randy Engel and I have implored pro-life leaders in Catholic media to join us in exposing and confronting Carl Anderson, the Knights of Columbus, and March for Life. Andrew Walther, as of May 2020, has taken on the role as president and COO of EWTN News. Carl Anderson's tentacles, the tentacles of the Knights of Columbus, and the money that they donate to different organizations and causes in the Catholic world reaches very far. They have a frightening amount of control. We're talking right now in the secular world of politics in the United States about big tech and the influence that they have over information and what gets reported and what gets silenced. It's not a whole lot better in the Catholic world, folks, I assure you. Now, among the persons and the organizations that I've approached with this scandal are Father Frank Pavone, Live Action, LifeSite News, Abby Johnson, Life News. And the only one of this group to respond was Stephen Ertelt of Life News, who insists that there is no scandal here at all. And he even went so far as to accuse me of calumny, if you can believe it. Carl Anderson grossly misrepresents Catholic doctrine, which is plain and simple. And I've committed calumny. What's going on here? Well, evidently, and this is just a guess on my part, but it seems that money talks more loudly to these people than the cries of the unborn. We're being mutilated day in and day out in this country. Unfortunately, it appears that that's the reason why no one among this group and others is willing to speak up. So if you're a member or if you're a financial supporter of any one of the people or organizations that I mentioned in this video, Knights of Columbus, March for Life, Father Frank Pavone of Priests for Life, Live Action, LifeSite News, Abby Johnson, Life News, or any other that I haven't mentioned or named, be sure to let them know that you're not going to give them another thin dime until they take appropriate action in this matter. Forward this video to them. Forward the articles that I've linked below, please. Every single one of us has a role to play in addressing this terrible scandal. Will you too stay silent?